sus pies descalzos mueven la tierra para cubrir la semilla dorada. Aún canta el viento al sol, a la noche y a las estrellas, y eleva al cielo su canción llena de alegrías y de tristeza. La 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 la
Bom dia, buenos dias, good morning.
Good morning.
Bem-vindos e bem-vindas. Bem-vindos, bem-vindas. Welcome, everyone. É um grande prazer estar mais uma vez com vocês para mais uma experiência de conexão do Interser, Jornada da Interdependência. Antes de mais nada, eu quero... Bien, es un placer estar con todos y un regalo tenerlos con nosotros. El primer que hacemos es hablar de traducción, que es muy importante. Entonces, paso la palabra a Andrés Gutiérrez, que nos va a contar y nos explicar cómo podemos escuchar en 3 idiomas, en portugués, inglés o español. Hola Andrés, buenos días.
Buenos días, Regina. Buenos días a todos, mi nombre es Andrés Gutiérrez y me van a escuchar a mí y a Sonia Hernández cuando hagamos la traducción al español. Les voy a dar las instrucciones, pueden ver en su pantalla las instrucciones acerca de cómo activar la función de interpretación en Zoom, la cual va a estar iniciada dentro de unos segundos cuando terminemos de dar las instrucciones. Entonces, si hablas español, en los controles de la reunión selecciona interpretación. Este botón va a aparecer cuando esté activada la función y allí elige el idioma español. Si no quieres escuchar la voz original de fondo, selecciona silenciar audio original y en cualquier momento puedes cambiar esta configuración. Good morning, my name is Andrés Gutiérrez. I'm going to be the interpreter for English to Spanish, and Paulo is going to be the interpreter from Portuguese to Spanish. So in the meeting controls, please click on interpretation. You will see this button on the controls in the bottom part of your screen as soon as the option is active. That will happen in a few seconds. And then click onto the English option. If you do not want to hear the original voice in the background, please click on mute original audio and you can change the settings anytime. Paulo, can you please give the instructions in Portuguese?
Eu posso tentar?
Okay.
Posso
yeah,
tentar,
Regina.
Andrés, ayúdame, por favor,
Sí.
porque siempre te escucho, pero nunca vi las instrucciones. Na barra de baixo da sua janela do Zoom, você encontra um botão, que é esse botão de interpretação, que aparece o mundo, e aí você pode escolher uma que você prefere escutar. Se você não vê esse ícone, você pode ir em mais, e aí você também encontra a opção de passar para a tradução. A qualquer momento, você pode mudar a configuração e eleger outro idioma que você prefira escutar e acompanhar nosso evento. ¿Es eso, Andrés? ¿Algo más?
Sí, eso está perfecto, muchas gracias. Entonces, por favor, anfitrión, actívale el micrófono a Paulo, que no lo he podido activar, y ya podemos activar la función de interpretación. Muchas gracias.
Obrigada, graças, Andrés. Aí a gente já pode ver abaixo, nos apareceu o ícone interpretação, e aí você pode escolher o idioma que quer ouvir o nosso evento. Hoje nós temos música ao vivo no Interser. Quem está com a gente é o Marco Tafoya, que está ali com o Erik Friend e a Alma. Ele já nos presenteou com uma música e eu gostaria de escutar mais uma música enquanto a gente espera um pouquinho mais as pessoas que ainda não chegaram. Pode ser, Marco? ¿Nos puede regalar una canción más? Gracias. Eric, creo que tu micrófono está cerrado. Aproveito para pedir que todos mantenham seus microfones fechados, para que a gente tenha mais clareza de audição no nosso evento de hoje. Agora sim, Marco, Eric, por favor. Eric.
Hija.
No sé, algo pasa, Eric, que no podemos escucharlos. ¿Los vemos?
¿Escucha acá?
Sí.
Okay.
Ahora sí.
Si no, otro micrófono.
Chiquitzatzilistli, casi yancuitlawili, kipia y seliclachia, ese es chica guaquillol, abuela motihuetzca, azteca miecocolistli, pampate Juan titlamati, mactoyuca tiasi, tehuatitla paltixua. Piso yolistli, tlamatiti sikiltoa, ashkampati piaske te cuaquilistli, amo iguani muxicuani, amo iguani calderón, wala sewa y tlaneshkayo, macho kilistli mapacho. Chiquitzatzilistli, sello lojlite te cuicas, oxe quintinish te lolo, tlaltipatli tlachiasque, te juatitla patitsua, titla piso yolistli, tlamatiti sekirtoa, ashkampati piasque te cuaquilistli, amo iguani moxicuani, amo iguani calderón, wala sewa y tlaneshkayot, macho kilistli mapacho.
Obrigada, Marco.
Obrigado.
Gracias, Marco. Bem, para honrar o nosso tempo, vamos dar início oficial ao nosso painel de
We're going to officially start.
Panel. But before we start, I'd like to remind you, those who have already
So for the people who just arrived,
we
we
have
will have
translation
interpretation
English, Portuguese, and Spanish.
English, Spanish, and
So,
Portuguese.
Bottom, you will find the interpretation icon, and then you will choose
And you can
what
choose the language that
you'd
you
like
wish to listen to the interview.
Interser's session
today.
today.
You can please choose
Today's
English. You can
topic
see the
is, what
little
is
button.
a
If you just
dream
arrived, you will find a little
to the
button.
world?
So
A
today's
world
topic is,
that
what's
fits
the
into
dream for the
all
world? A world that
one
is
that's sustainable,
sustainable and
complete.
plenty and
Our
just.
facilitators today,
Today we're going to be facilitated and guided.
Experience today are our friend dreamer and creator of the Interser team. That's
Seu micrófono está cerrado, Eric.
Cali. Ya estamos, va, ya.
Ahora
ya.
sí.
Hola, hola. Buenos días. Qué gusto estar aquí.
So hello, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I want to express my deep gratitude with the team we have here and with all the people who are making it possible to have music and to have this space. And I also want to say thank you to the other speakers today because we have an amazing panel and we have a challenging and beautiful and deep conversation in this regarding this topic that we consider so important of creating dreams for the world, that is social justice and diversity. It's a really challenging and beautiful and deep topic because we need all the voices in order to create a dream that is for the world. We need the voices of many instead of just the voices of some, just some, and even less of the some that always speak and are always heard. And I think there is an opportunity regarding this topic of power, or sorry, of being able, not of power, but of being able to reaching a world that is really gives us a good way of living and well-being. But I want to be realistic. We cannot skip the uncomfortable part of the social injustice and discrimination. So before reaching the possibility of connecting with what social justice offers to us, we need to first connect and be able to listen to the experience of pain, of suffering that a lot of people have undergone due to injustice. So, and particularly, it's important for me to acknowledge this because I am a white man uh, with a cultural legacy of domination, of colonization, of slavery, and a lot of the benefit that I live nowadays.
Historia detrás.
tem a ver com essa história. E isso é uma coisa que eu penso todos os dias. E felizmente as comunidades são boas.
I come here and I always feel a deep love. They receive me with a lot of love. And from that privilege, I decide to be able to channel resources that I can mobilize from the north in order to do projects here in Mexico. But I must be honest, those resources wouldn't have been necessary if there hadn't been an imposition of a system of domination and of exploitation. So it's an issue of justice. So if I ask to all of you to tell me what is social justice, I think each and every one of us would have like a different perception or a different definition of what social justice is. But I do believe, and I generally find and believe that in mid-class, in the middle social class, there is not a very complete perspective of what is social justice is, though well-intentioned, but at least from the liberal, progressive sectors. But starting from this idea that the thinking about, are we guilty or at least responsible about that? Does that mean that we have to fix it? But that's an interesting question. But at the same, okay, we created the problem, we're gonna fix it. Yes, that has some logic, but at the same time, it's kind of arrogant. Like, how, from my legacy and from everything that I bring from my ancestors, structure of domination, of superiority, it wouldn't that be just to repeat that? Like, I created that problem, but oh, I have the answers, I can fix it, I have the tools. No, it's logic that I'm not able to be able to do it from the mid class. It's not possible to create this other world where many different worlds fit in. Another very interesting topic, it has to do with us, like mid classes. When we talk about social justice, we say yes, we can do something to create a world that is more fair, and we are going to work in order to have less discrimination. But if it's the people of the people who raise their, or maybe the poor people, so to say, who say we want justice, then we don't like it so much. Like, why am I going to have to carry with their pain and their anger? No, that's their problem. I'm going to do my part, but I do not have to deal with their part. Talking about the people who are like really on more oppressed sectors of society, but it's even worse. Um, we say they don't understand the world. It's their problem. We should leave this to the experts who study these things. It's just imagine the educational system that we have is based on this structure of colonizing. So it's going to be really hard that from that same mentality, decolonizing or liberating educational system can be created. So before tossing the mic here to Alma, I want to say something else that perhaps is the hardest thing for us, white men especially, and it's that what is being asked from us in this time nowadays is not so much to do something, but one thing is to do let do, but I think another thing is to be able to open ourselves authentically to listening to the pain, to the suffering, and the rage, without putting a barrier, because we always hide ourselves behind a barrier, and we say, oh, that does not, I do not have to deal with that, I'm not responsible of that. So I think that is the first step. Eric, thank you very much. Thank you very much for what you share with us, for the place from where you do it. I think all of us here, and I hope each and every one of you felt it also from whenever you are, to be able to connect from the place that you're talking to us, Eric, to that place you're talking to us from. I really appreciate this possibility to be able to connect with other friends. She's speaking in native language. So we receive you with our open hearts, and we're also today willing to talk, to have dialogue, to share about these ways in which we can dream other worlds. And I really cherish this introduction that you just gave. And when you talked before about this vision of being having brothers and sisters in the continent, and thinking that what we dream is what we build the world instead of the other way around. So from this connection, this beautiful connection that is to be able to see it from the positive side, it's also, first of all, I believe it has to do with understanding where we are standing. And of course, we are standing in a space of perhaps a lot of pain and a lot of anger. And we are really grateful for the open listening to this pain and to this complexity that our communities undergo, our indigenous communities. And we also appreciate when you listen to us with happiness and with capacity of proposition and creating other conditions. And something very clear for us is that in this dream of justice and fairness and equality, we we need to understand many things, and we not only wish that you can listen to us and understand us, but also that us as people from different cultures to understand that we have been colonized, that we have been invaded, but not only in the territory, we have been bulldozed in the body and in the thinking. You know, um, uh, we have been overwhelmed, and there is a strong fight of the people who have been able to maintain, to preserve the ancestral way of thinking. But there's a strong fight with the influence of the modern world, but at the same time to understand that each of our different cultures also have their own differences. So we need to also begin by understanding ourselves and embracing our differences. And maybe we're going to talk a little bit later about a concept of the hand. So if we understand ourselves, cultures, as different entities and see ourselves from that place, it's very likely that we can take the best of every single dream in order to redream ourselves. And I think that there have been important progresses, thanks to the fact that there are many friends that together with us and before us, our ancestors have already tried to generate dialogues for social justice and trying to understand the language that the colonizer speaks. And in the case of women, we really appreciate and are grateful for the Sisters of South America, because it really took a long time to achieve this philosophical concept of communitary feminism, because that was something that many women were thinking already, and have been thinking for a long time, that there is this colonizing scheme and this domination scheme, but we were not able to see the fight with our partners within our families. And we also knew that we were being colonized and sort of abused by them. But we did not know how to act upon it without having a negative effect on our own communities. So when the sisters now have been able to land this, to ground this in a very interesting ways, and they say we are all subject, and I want to also refer to your words, Eric. We are all subject to this system, and this system that is so colonizing, so abusing, it's patriarchy. All of us, men or women, white or black, or of whatever other skin color we are, or culture, there has been a patriarchal colonizing uh, that establishes power hierarchies, um, in which both men and women are immersed. And a lot of times we do not realize this. Us, the original peoples, we do not recognize this, and we perpetuate this patriarchy. And we need to change this for a less aggressive system, and we need to, first of all, to be aware of it. So if we talk about social justice and equity, we must, of course, begin to start to clean from within these spaces that have been so terribly colonized, especially the educational system. In each one of our nations, we have been taught to include this educational system, and we need to rebuild from there also and give the full value and full way to that ancestral culture, to our ancestral cultures, that even if they're not perfect and they have many things to make better, we can start from there and to build better conditions, and also to generate the dialogue that will enable us to understand all together this as a very large mass of peoples and cultures, uh, so we can all work in order to be able to balance this other small percentage that has the vast majority of the power, which are not only men, they're also women. They are not only white, they are also belong to many different cultures. So we need to stand on understanding what really um, keeps us in these conditions of exploitation and anger, and we see it constantly when the modern culture progresses into our territories that we have um, preserved historically. That is painful, but it's more painful as that this colonization is happening in our thinking. So we are working, men and women, indigenous and non-indigenous, from displaced or non-displaced communities, but also brothers such as you in this case that come with the best will, and maybe we do not know very well how to embrace you and include you in this fight, but because we need to do it in our thought and in our heart, because we see you as same when you come to join us. Well, thank you, thank you. I want to really highlight this invitation that you're making, because it's already time to get all of us together, to get together, to join, to connect with a different sensation, with a different feeling, with more appreciation and more cherishing. And another thing that I think is important of what you said is that there is this idea of the modern world, and indigenous cultures are kind of static. If the modern world thinks of that, and no, the evolution happens all the time, and indigenous cultures are also evolving and they're working on their own issues. And when we can all acknowledge that is when we can interweave together, when we can make a tapestry together. Yes, and I want to say something else. uh, it's not just this metaphorical aspect from which we're going to redream ourselves, but it also has to do with how we are grounding ourselves. And I would like to say regarding this that we have had very important progresses, such as the 169, the 169th concept of the originary rights act, in which many of us original peoples have gotten together in order to use the law on our favor, and that also gives us happiness, and that also gives us well-being. uh, and so we also have new generations that are working from these perspectives. We invite them to also see us in this other way, not with miserliness, but uh, that they can see us and conceive us as this being who are moving forward and transforming ourselves and taking on the new technologies and taking on the new strategies and the tools that the modern system has, in which we are all immersed, in order to leverage and to balance weights, understanding their arguments, and regarding the not only the law part, but or the legal part, but also the economic aspect, but especially from the aspect of dignity. And that's the spaces that we need more, the most, the spaces that make us visible and that dignify us. And that is a perfect point, and that is exactly what we're going to talk about after the little recess that we're going to have. So I would love to listen more about that, but later. So thank you. So let's now toss the microphone to Marcelo from Brazil, who's going to also talk about his experience regarding social justice and diversity inclusion. So, first of all, thanks a lot, Marcelo, for accepting our invitation, for being here. And the previous conversations that we have had helped me to integrate what we're doing today. So, thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you, Eric. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Can you? Wonderful. So I'll talk in my language. I'm Brazilian. I'll speak in Portuguese. For me, it's an honor. I'm really touched to be here with you, connected with you. We have almost 80 people from many different places. As I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I was listening to Alma and Eric, the first thing that springs to mind is that diversity is linked to everyone. Oftentimes, people say, okay, we'll now work for diversity, we'll hire more diverse people, Black people, LGBT people. But I'll give you one example. When we talk about ethnic diversity, of course, the white people is also part of our ethnic diversity. All indigenous people, Black people, Asians, everyone is part of our ethnic diversity. Then sexual diversity, gender diversity. Everyone is part of diversity. So talking about diversity is crucial to me. It may seem that as we lead projects and talks about this topic, about diversity, what I feel along the way is the deeper you get into this reflection, the more we release voices. It's as though voices that have been oppressed, that were raped, that were silenced. And I'm talking about Black people, Indigenous people, transgender people. Like in Brazil, the life expectancy of a transsexual is 35 years old. When we compare that to a cisgender person, their life expectancy then increases to 80 years old. And this is extremely serious. Unfortunately, I'm part or I am in a country that kills the largest number of LGBT people. So this is an urgent matter that needs urgent discussions. We need to deconstruct beliefs. We need to follow, we need to keep learning and renewing our ideas. I'm 39. I was born in 1981. When I was born, all these topics were not discussed or hardly ever discussed. And I was too feminine. I was sensitive. I was artistic. I had many features that in my community and in my ancestors, my family, these people around me, they learned that some of my features were in the girls' compartment, and I was a boy. And this led to a lot of discomfort from all levels and a lot of violence at all levels against me and against people with similar features. So as I was a teenager and I was turning 20, when I started my process of self-knowledge, I came to understand that many voices inside me were silenced, were muted. I had one side that was proud and felt validated by people. You're smart, you're hardworking, but then there was another part that doubted myself. So the things that I heard about myself made me doubt my own skills, my own competence. So first, I needed to understand myself. And this process of cure also gave me the will to share it with other people. So in all these years in which I've been talking and discussing and learning about these topics is that people want two things. They want to be accepted and they want to belong to their groups. But in some communities, and then I'm referring to Eric's example of a straight white man that has his own difficulties and problems, of course, but these small problems and the small prejudice that people have are like mosquito bites. In some communities, there are many bites, mosquito bites, many more than others, and this is really tiring. So my thought and my invitation, I invite you to challenge these beliefs. Everything we've learned, for instance, we should be suspicious of any idea expressed by another race because our parents taught us to think along these lines. But from now on, we should open up for this encounter, for dissolving, for knocking down these barriers, these walls, so that the connection of love helps us get closer to people like a bridge. And this touches me deeply when I see that this is possible and that this will happen. Finally, as a gay man, I want to say that my inner battle is when I talk to someone I like, I say, well, this kind of joke that you've just expressed, that you just said, told, makes me sad. I often, many times, I've never said anything. I heard many comments that were not, of course, directed toward me, but I didn't say anything. I didn't feel like being or disturbing them or bothering them in a way. But today, I talk to people when they talk to me. I tell them how I feel, and I teach them other ways of approaching this topic and asking these people, although they don't do this on purpose necessarily, just they're unable to do it differently. I ask them to think it over. And so if you're silent, if you don't express your views, you're also responsible for keeping things the way they are. This is my invitation to you. Express your views. Well, this is the end of my first part. I'll turn it over to Mariana. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, thanks a lot, Marcelo. I find it beautiful how you end up saying that it's necessary to to put ourselves into some discomfort, and I want to touch about that a little bit later. But first, I would like to begin with a sentence of Ursula K. Le Guin, a feminist woman, who says that when talks from women, and she says, "When we women offer our experience as the truth and the truth of the world, all the maps change, and new mountains appear." And I think that is really beautiful to think not only from the point of view of women, but also from any person who is thought about as segregated in this colonial system, and when they offer their experience, somehow this somehow penetrates in our system and the modern world system, and has to and makes us ask ourselves new things. And I think that in order to acknowledge those experiences, when we understand those experiences, we also need to make an exercise of honesty with ourselves, of facing ourselves honestly, what regarding what is our position and our benefit perhaps of being within this modern colonial system. For example, me as a woman could be on certain disadvantage regarding the system, but I also belong to a mid-high class, and I also have some educational opportunities, and I can study in the university. And these are opportunities that also give me certain things, but I also need to understand that in the same way as I have this opportunity, uh, they can also make, or I can also make the system become more solid, more perpetuated in its injustice, or I can change it. So first of all we need to be really honest regarding where are we located within that system, and from that honesty, something very beautiful can happen, and it is to be able to acknowledge ourselves, and also to see that there are voices that are more uncomfortable to listen, because we have learned that they are uncomfortable, or because we have learned that there are things that are normal and things that are not normal. So in order to put ourselves out of our comfort zone and to dream this collective dream with collective voices, we not only need to listen to the voices that we find pleasant or friendly, but also to listen to the anger of the women, of the woman that works in sex, uh, in a dangerous neighborhood here in Colombia, and they say, "Hey, you mind more about the lives of the women of high class, of the heterosexual women, or women who are not prostitutes as ourselves." That's what they might think and have to say. So I think that's very important, because when we acknowledge that, we acknowledge, and what Erik said, that we must listen to these uncomfortable voices. And there is something very poetic here regarding listening, and that I like. And I think I read it from an author from India, and he said that in order to listen, we must make ourselves aside in order to be able to listen. And I find that beautiful also, because when we set ourselves aside in order to listen, we acknowledge that we need to make space, to give space to those voices that have been suffocated by this system. And we also, it's not only to give, it's not only something that we must do with these voices, but we also shall do it for our own benefit, because our bodies are also living this. So for myself as a woman, I must be able to listen to things that are outside of what I've been taught that being a woman is. So what if I listen to a transgender woman or a prostitute? What is it for her to dream, from her point of view, without excluding anything, without selecting what I want to listen, and what is comfortable for me, but to listen to everything. And I'm also generating a space when I set myself aside, and I'm giving space precisely to those other voices, so they can be able to question deeply the way in which I see the world and the way in which I consider what community is, because we need to learn to make community, including those uncomfortable voices, and understanding why are they not comfortable, and understanding how can I dialogue with them and question myself. And this also transform our ways of interbeing. So I think that would be all. And I would now like to invite Edgar from Brazil to bring his voice, regarding what he thinks and feels about this. Edgar, welcome.
Muchas gracias, Mariana. Yo veo que hay un intérprete, ¿no? ¿Tengo que hablar castellano o puedo hablar portugués? ¿Qué les parece?
Sim,
Yo
pode
soy...
falar português, Edgar, por
Yes, you
favor.
can speak English. Sorry, you can speak Portuguese, Edgar. Thank you.
Minhas reflexões.
Well, my reflections, my thoughts, as I was listening to Marcelo, who spoke before Mariana, I remembered
Uma experiência que eu tive
an experience I had
aproximadamente 3 anos atrás.
about 3 years ago,
Foi encontro global
and this was a global meeting
New Story Summit.
called the New Stories Summit,
Da nova história, uma nova narrativa.
or, or of a new narrative, maybe. And the people there, they chose 300 leaders, and I was lucky enough to be chosen. I was very fortunate to be there. So they chose 300 religious leaders, shamans from Alaska or Africa, from the United States, political leaders, 100 political leaders, and 100 social leaders. It was an amazing experience. And at the time they worked and discussed the pain that permeates the world. We need to overcome this narrative and have a border. Like in Brazil, we have this border between Brazil and Argentina. And if there's a war, people will kill their neighbors. Or maybe gender barriers or skin color barriers. So there's always a narrative, a set of beliefs we were trained to follow. And it is hard. It's
Sair dela.
really
Mas tem uma outra história.
troublesome to move away from these narratives. But there's one thing, there's another thing. There's this quote, they say, right there, beyond the notions of right doing or wrong doing, there's a field, and I'll meet you there. So right there, beyond the notions of right or wrong, so right there, right, beyond the right and the wrong, there's a whole field, a path, and I'll meet you there. And I agree with this. I'm really touched now. There was so much pain in that room with these 300 worldwide leaders, and they wanted to bring all the pain in the world there of Black women, of Muslim, the Middle East, Syria, many types of pain. And then we left and dreamt about it. And then we, on the second day, started a dialogue. But the pain was so strong, so intense. People who started crying. These were pains that went back many centuries. And the shamans in the room, they huddled together and they kind of left together. It was, and then they came back to the room and they offered, there were 3 indigenous, one of them came here. There were 3 indigenous women inviting everyone to participate in a ritual to ask for support for us, to help us go through this phase, things that were not in the groups. And I had no doubt I wanted to participate. And almost, in the end, almost the 300 leaders were there. And there were many African people and other peoples, and they put us at the center, the indigenous people. There was even a Japanese committee that was there. You're also indigenous, but I'm indigenous. Okay, but you go there, people from India, people from Africa, and then there was this amazing ceremony, 3 women and this Peruvian shaman, and we were there, and there was a lot of crying. I'm really calm and collected. I'm used to these, and when he touched me with a feather, I cried like crazy. This was not my, just mine. I think it dated back for centuries. And there were about 70 people in the middle of this circle and the others around us. There was a purification ritual, and the things that they said were really intense. She said, forgive them for our women. She told us things that happened to the Black peoples, and I had no idea. She wanted to destroy the male element in the Black human. So how can we do this? Women were alone because they took their men away. This is something that happened 300 years ago, but it's still alive in Black men. There's always this break, this pulling people apart to master them. So colonizers they knew how to do this. This was like mastering an animal, like taming an animal. That's what they did with the Black men. So at the end of the experience, we started to realize that there were shouts, and they were much louder than ours. This is an American shaman. And then we realized that they were shouting. It was just the Europeans and the white people that were shouting outside in the outer circles, not us. And when she finished going round and we started hugging, and she said, let's go, let's work. She said, so we were crouching and she said, let's work. And when I realized what ritual she was doing, she was not working with the white people. She needed to clean them up because they needed our forgiveness. And then the 70 people left. We were out of the inner circle, and these white people, they were rolling over in pain on the floor, and it was so strong. And I went as far as my great grandparents there. There was all these people kind of holding this field of forgiveness, and it was a true healing for me. The entire system was suffering. It was not only me, and it was really interesting to see that expressed. So for me, when I hear this right there, beyond the notions of right doing or and wrongdoing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. So this idea of inner being is not an achievement. It's not about a pedagogy. This narrative we've been telling each other, they're there, we're here, the male is there, the female is over there, the black is here, the white is there. Well, indigenous people don't do this. We are inner being. We don't need to be 100 years apart to re-educate everyone. This can be done right away, very soon, right here. We can make it much lighter, a completely different reality from the one we are imprisoned in. So we use meditation. In a meditation, you go, whenever you see someone that says, I don't like black people, you have to go to a different place. It may be much faster, much simpler. It may be just awakening. So how can we invite people for this awakening? So this is my conclusion. I like to be as elegant as everyone said. So who should I turn it over to? I don't know. In love, right? As Marcelo said. And then Mariana said, okay, now it's Edgar. Erik. All right. So Erik, beyond the notions of right doing and wrongdoing, I'll turn it over to you. I'd love to hear you speak now.
Tu micrófono está cerrado, Erik.
Ya, ok, ya está abierto. Muy bien. Ay, qué hermoso.
Very well. So it was really beautiful and powerful. I feel a lot of gratitude. I'm thinking that the purpose of the interbeing journey, we say it is reconnecting and healing and realizing dreams for the world. And kind of this topic of social justice has to do with this topic of not being able to realize and reconnecting the dreams if we do not heal ourselves, kind of. And another important thing was that Alma and I were talking is that we all need to heal. And that's important regarding what Edgar said, is that this system does not have beneficiaries. I come from a place of a lot of privilege, and I say I was born in the United States, but I found life in Mexico because there is a lot of lack there, a different kind of lack. So I thought we needed to go through this stage of healing first, and then we're going to go for a break, and Regina's going to talk about this, and then comes a second part having to do with what does the what does all of this have to do with creating a world where many words can be that can embrace many worlds? So, Regina, I'm gonna toss you the mic, and so go on, Regina.
Sim, eu estava com o microfone não havia percebido. Obrigada, Erik.
Thank you, Erik.
Edgar, Alma.
Thank you, Edgar, Alma, Mariana, Marcelo.
Muito enriquecedor e tocante.
It was really touching to hear you talk. So we'll have our break, a 5-minute break, just to stretch your legs, and we'll be right back. And I'll share Interser's video with you again for us to keep connected, and we will continue talking very soon. So I'll share the video. We'll see each other in 5 minutes.
El mito del águila y el cóndor cuenta que hace mucho tiempo el mundo se dividió en dos caminos. El camino del cóndor, que es el camino de lo femenino, del corazón, de la intuición. El camino del águila, que es el camino de la razón, de la mente, de lo masculino. La profecía dice que solo hasta que el águila y el cóndor vuelen juntos, nos encontraremos en paz, plenitud y unidad. Inspirados por este mito, un grupo de líderes de Iberoamérica escuchamos el llamado de la Alianza Pachamama, una organización con presencia en más de 100 países. Y nos juntamos con una intención: sanar la herida que se ha abierto por la separación que tenemos los seres humanos con la Madre Tierra. Entonces, integrando lo que nos mueve, desde el amor y desde el dolor, comenzamos un sueño con el que todos estamos conectados, o mejor, interconectados.
El reconectar con la naturaleza, el reconectar con los otros y el reconectar con nuestros sueños es algo que para mí está ahí esperando a ser de alguna manera expresado, ¿no? Y para mí han sido el descubrimiento de volver a lo esencial, ¿no? De volver a sentir que no estoy separada, que no estoy separada de Dios, que no estoy separada de la naturaleza y que no estoy separada de los otros.
Este llamado a ser comunidad se materializó en el 2013 en Ubaté, Colombia, donde continuamos una nueva etapa del viaje.
Somos la Alianza Pachamama Iberoamérica, un grupo creciente de personas que escuchamos el llamado de Pachamama Alliance y lo transmitimos en nuestro idioma, el español. Vivimos en todos los países de Iberoamérica y mantenemos un fuerte vínculo entre nosotros.
Juntos seguimos el vuelo de unión del águila y el cóndor. Para esto recorrimos lugares sagrados de Latinoamérica, sanándonos individual y colectivamente. En este recorrido vivimos una transformación interior que nos permitió reafirmar el compromiso con el propósito de la Alianza Pachamama: generar una presencia humana ambientalmente sustentable, socialmente justa y espiritualmente plena. Con este propósito, seguimos con el vuelo y, al igual que en el mito, entendimos que somos seres interdependientes y que solo al volar juntos podríamos hacerlo realidad.
Y yo creo que ese sueño es posible y que ese sueño requiere de nosotros algo muy distinto a simplemente transformarnos a nivel personal. Yo creo que ese sueño requiere que nosotros seamos capaces de transformar sistemas y estructuras. Y yo creo que el Interser es esa posibilidad de encuentro y esa posibilidad de entrar en esa conversación o de continuar en esa conversación, pero continuar de la mano con otros.
Los sueños precisan de estructura, ¿sí? Para que se realicen precisa del poeta y del ingeniero, conversando.
El mito habla del retorno a la unidad, por eso decidimos invitar a volar a otros con nosotros. Y entonces nació el Interser Journey, una comunidad y una plataforma de aprendizaje para reconectar, sanar y realizar sueños para el mundo.
Yo sueño en un mundo en el que quepan todos los mundos, en el que podamos reconocer y cuidar la belleza de todas las formas de vida y ninguna vida valga más que otra.
Sueño con un mundo justo, en el que los seres humanos nos tratemos dignamente los unos a los otros y tratemos a la tierra dignamente también.
Mi sueño para el mundo es repoblar el bosque andino de mi país.
Sueño con este framework, sueño con esta estructura de soporte esencial para los soñadores, donde los soñadores podamos tomar la decisión de iniciar el viaje que nos propone nuestro sueño.
El primer Interser Journey lo realizamos en Brasil en 2019. Nos enfrentamos a romper el paradigma de lo que creíamos posible o imposible para la humanidad y el planeta. Brasil fue un escenario importante por su contexto político y social. En ese preciso momento, la democracia, la diversidad y la madre tierra estaban siendo amenazados y era necesario actuar. Hoy, en medio de la crisis generada por la pandemia, es urgente hacer posibles sueños para el mundo. El Interser Journey es una plataforma para que estas ideas se hagan realidad. ¿Cuál es tu sueño? ¿Cuál es tu sueño para el mundo? ¿Estás listo para hacerlo realidad? El Interser Journey será un encuentro online. Inscríbete en www.interserjourney.org.
Olá, estamos de volta.
So we're back. Thank you for being with us in such a profound and important conversation. We want to dream about this world of seeing everyone together, to interbe, to cure together. So again, Erik, thank you for building today's conversation. Thank you for creating such wonderful connections that let us listen to sweet Mariana, as Marcelo said, with very clear dreams to the world, with a heart that is ready for us to live in this world. So the experience and the story and the content that Marcelo shared, Edgar's soul, it enriches us so much knowledge at our disposal. That's why we keep listening to them. So this conversation with Marcelo, Edgar, Erik, Alma, and maybe Mariana. So I'll turn it over to Erik so that he opens this conversation and we keep here connected, enriching our heart, our souls, and our ability to be. Erik, over to you.
Abre tu micrófono, Erik, por favor.
Please turn on your microphone, Erik, please.
No, ¿cómo no?
It's not working? How so?
No sé si
Eu sempre digo que disso se trata Interser. Sim, por favor, Erik.
Respirar.
That's what interbeing is about. So, well, thanks a lot. It's a beautiful space what we are creating here. And, well, we're going to move on to the second stage of our session, the second question, and the part that is going to land our conversation into the interbeing journey, the Interser journey. So, as I promised you at the beginning, I want to reach this part that is the part of creation. But this creation must come from diverse voices that include the full spectrum of diversity, where there is an equality of voice everywhere. And I'm gonna go back uh, to Brazil because believe there is a wise person that has touched a lot of
Freire,
people.
sí, claro.
I think you have heard about Paulo Freire, in all the social and popular movements in the world. There is something very specific that Paulo Freire says, uh, and I think it has a lot to do with what we are talking here. And it's something that touched me years ago. Is Paulo Freire said something? Okay, so there's interference. Okay, sorry. So domination, and so Paulo Freire said that the the oppressor cannot free the oppressed. Naturally, it makes sense because if you think that from the power, he is the one who frees the other person, he's still in the power because he can take that freedom away again. But there is something else that touched me really, and is that Paulo Freire said that it's not only that, but that it is the oppressed, the the one who can free themselves, and also the oppressed one is the one who can free the oppressor. There is no other way in which this can happen. So we can understand that without talking necessarily about specific people, but of a oppressing system in which there are no beneficiaries. The system has a life of itself and oppresses everybody. And so from that system, freedom cannot be found. We need to, for freedom, we need to change our ways of seeing, of listening. We need to change paradigms in order to be able to do it. So yes, how to give voice to everyone does not mean to silence who have had a voice before, but it's like to put them on a leverage, on a way. And because there are a lot of people who do not have voice or vote in this system or value, uh, so we need to put them kind of in a scale, the different voices, and we're not going to be able to create any sustainable and just and plenty system if we do not include the voices of everyone. So, and this begins by listening to the voices where we never thought that we were going to listen to voices, uh, and that maybe we didn't even realize that they existed. So the margins of that they the voice those voices that are in the margins of society, how can we give them voice and an appreciative listening, a generational or generative listening, to where we can acknowledge that each of these voices have their own value, and so this generative listening can help us uh, give them space. And Einstein said sometime that we are not going to reach anywhere if we do not do things differently. That's the definition of craziness. So that's the invitation to dreaming for the world, but more than from the world. The change of paradigm for me is with the world, with the world. Yes, it's like that. Sorry, se quedaron sin audio. Eric. Thank you, thank you. So it's beautiful what you say, and I really appreciate the words of everyone. This word that we bring in order to fuel the efforts and the beautiful flowers that we bring here, especially from the perspective of listening, in which I wonder or think about where am I listening from and how can I include the other one. And it's kind of difficult to do it because it vulnerates my status. It can uh, vulnerate my little space of it can violate my space of comfort and of security. So the big question is, how can I give space to these many other ways of being in the world and looking into the world? And I do not need to go to a different culture. I can do it from here, from my day-to-day life, starting to open myself to the different vision of the person who is next to me, the person with whom I work. So there is where I can start building empathy. That is not just an intention or a sentence, a philosophy, but a reality. So Freire said that we all have the knowledge and we all build the knowledge all together. So the big game in which we invite you is to bring all this into this magical pot that is gonna turn it into a delicious food that is going to feed us all, because we have all put our ingredients there. And in that sense, I can understand that it sometimes seems very difficult when we are in other spaces, in other environments, in other contexts. However, it's what you just said, Eric, is very important. This system, however we want to call it, um, slaver, extractionalist, hegemonic, uh, this system that dominates or pretends through manipulation and through force, and all of these are violent structures. And this system that pretends by using violence to gain benefit for certain individuals or certain exclusive groups also suffers. This system also suffers. I do not want to say, oh, these poor people suffer. No, it's not only from this perspective, but at the end, as you well said, this does not give any benefit to anybody. There might be people that have a higher economical resource or more power gained through violence or through political power, but they are not living beings. They are not like sensitive human beings that are humanly alive. So it's also a sense of extractionalism or extraction. We are these beings, this spirit, this cosmovision, as we see them, or as we see ourselves from the indigenous culture. And also this, there is also this tangible sense in which my family needs to feed, and we need to talk with people different from us, and we need economic resources, and we need to get in touch with people from other systems, so we can get support. And that is how we can um, give stronger, more solid steps, or to generate these other spaces in which we change perspective. And in that sense, forgiveness, though it seems weird perhaps, but we're talking about seeing things from a different place. So forgiveness is essential. But first of all, towards oneself. I forgive myself. I restructure myself. I recompose myself, regardless whatever had happened before. Because I have also I have been colonized, but also because I exert power and sometimes I am violent, but also regarding how I build my relationships with my surroundings. And that leads me to forgiving others. And what Freire says there has all the logic of the world, because if we do not act, first of all, from from dissolving violence or disarticulating violence, we're not going to be able to move a lot forward. So we believe that these progresses have been achieved thanks to the fact that we see ourselves from this space, and we have become proactive, we have become creative, and we have dared to add ourselves with the people who generate dreams, who might not be the same people, but we are giving them this structure that we were talking about, and we are setting the basis for these new generations to have educational processes based on acceptance, love, and commitment with the others, commitment with community also. Thank you. We can start to picture the dream of a different world. And another part aspect of what you said, and I think is very true, and is that human beings are empathic beings. For the That's in our nature. We are em- we are empathetic or empathic, and we all feel suffering in one way or another, and pain. And we might use many things to disconnect ourselves from pain, and that perhaps is what is behind consumerism itself. It might be not to feel the pain of the other, though it reaches me, and that's a superb opportunity for a different possible world. So thank you, thanks to you. And Marcelo, yes, yeah, do you want to say something? Yes, I would like to say very fast, ask Marco to share with us the metaphor of the hand, that I think it would help us a lot to make sense about what we are talking. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity of being able to share with you. And now that I was listening to all of this, and that I listen to so many different languages here in this conversation, I was thinking about this legend that is mentioned in our community, in which they said that when the world was going to be created, all the gods got together during this process, and after a lot of debate, a lot of conversation, they decided to create the world. I don't know why they reached this agreement or this decision, but they created the world, and each one of them committed to adding something, giving something for the creation of the world. And in the world, they said the land is committed to giving, to feeding women and men and women, and men and women are committed to giving, to feeding the earth when they die. And that led us to understanding more a metaphor that when I was a child, my grandma taught to me, and that said that we, the peoples of the world, are like the fingers of the hand. When we see the fingers of our hand, each one is different. No, we have the index, or the middle finger, the one of the ring, all the different fingers of the hand. I don't know their use, but each one of them is or larger or smaller, or thicker or thinner. And for the hand to be able to be a hand, and to grab and to caress and to play instruments and whatever, all the fingers must be together despite their differences. And I think that's very important to understand. And this explains why the world cannot be with ones or the others, but we can all be together if we understand and embrace these differences. Thank you. It's a perfect invitation. It's a perfect example to say we can create it, and we can only do it if we are together. Thank you. And well, um, uh, Mariana is not going to participate in this second round, but Marcelo, would you like to share something? And afterwards, Edgar?
Well, as I listen to you now, I wondered about empathy and how important empathy is. And the first thing that springs to mind to me is the idea of separation. In other words, this me and the other. They say that the learner asked his master, "What do I do?" And I feel angry toward a person, and what do I do with the other? And the master says, "There's no such a thing as the other." And this is what we are discussing here in interbeing. First, I should feel and be aware of how I am. And with this self-regulation, I use it in my relations. Whenever I feel very tense, I need to have some tough conversations with people. So how can I make this, or how can I do this in a place of respect? How can I do this respectfully? When we access this nature of love that we call empathy, it's so nice to have empathetic people around us. There's a warmth in it, and people tend to listen to you more actively. They look at you in the eye. They have a genuine interest in connecting with you, them, us, everyone. Now, if you are away from this, it will be really hard to live together. So, for us to think about how we can take care of our relations in this space of love. I live in a city, the city of Sao Paulo, a very dynamic city, like with most capital cities of the world. There's a lot of anxiety in the air. So we learned to live in a time that's very different from the organic or the time of nature. Rather than that, we become machines who just run all day long, and our ability to connect to people and to listen to people is compromised. So I believe that empathy has some premises. One of them is to be available emotionally, to be connected to the other. And this is very important if you want to see other people. Empathy is not necessarily about being in other people's place, to step into other people's shoes. I don't believe this is possible. Everyone has their own ways, their own stories. Rather than that, we should listen to people and acknowledge that there's other ways of being, other ways of living, of looking at people and recognizing, acknowledging the mystery of others and the many ways that people can address life problems. What I call a challenge, I may consider a challenge for other people that may be plain sailing. And this is so beautiful that we can help each other out. And in order for us to think together and live in true collaboration, what I've noticed is that we need to pay attention to whoever is around us, whatever is around us, and also find my needs and what I can offer. What are the best things I can give to people? There's always me as an individual and my group in an alliance. So it's about listening to myself, respecting myself, and listening to people around me and respecting people around me. I hope this made sense to your hearts. I'll now turn it over elegantly to Edgar. So we will listen to you again. I thought you would use the word love in love. I love the word. Okay, elegant is okay. I can take it. It was lovely to listen to you.
Capaz que abre poquito más despacio.
So I'm gonna speak in Spanish to see if I can speak a little bit slower.
Well, we can choose to speak more slowly in Portuguese or to speak in Spanish, whatever you feel better. As long as you're slow, you speak slowly, you're fine. I understood that. I was going to make a joke, crack a joke. Well, people say I'm an expert in joking around. I love the fields of play and I was trying to remember a German philosopher's name who says that the fullest version of humans, what we can call human, is when we are at play. And it's great that a German person says, if it's Latino, okay, they're always playing. But this was a German philosopher. I can't remember his name right now, but I'll send it to you. So what we can call human, what is the highest expression of human? When we are at play, when we're playing, we are beings. that love narratives, that love fantasy, that loves imagination. So in this world of imagination, of fantasy, and of play, which all children around the world do, this is when we are fully human. We are, well, we are primates, right? Like chimps, like baboons, like gorillas. But we are apes, according to Yuval Harari. They're our brothers, our sisters, our family. And Homo sapiens was exactly like we are today in the African savannas, with the uh, thumb and the brain that we have. So when we're wandering around African savannas, we were exactly like we are today. And Harari said that we were so much like us that if a spaceship went there and gave them a computer to our family there, they would learn how to use it. They had everything they needed. We had everything we needed. We could easily learn how to use a computer then without much effort. So in other words, we haven't progressed very much. So what we can do is really to realize our dreams. So the apes decided they were chosen by God, and they dreamed about this. And by doing this, we gave ourselves this power of mastering lions. But how can an ape, gorilla, chimps, or baboons master a lion? How have we achieved this? Because we let us think about how to master a lion just by imagining and thinking of flying. Because, dear friends, men and women don't fly, but we do fly. We dive, and we don't have, we're not like fish, but we go deep into the water. So we're always inventing things, making up things, creating things. Our narrative is very powerful. So apes, this kind of ape, Homo sapiens, playing and fantasizing and telling stories, this is when we are fully human. And we create stories all the time. Just imagine ourselves on a stage, like a Greek tragedy, or an Italian comedy, or Paradise on Earth, or a world war. We have lots of different stages where we tell different narrative stories. We say that this person will attack us. We say this person is potentially dangerous. This person we don't know is a danger. So we just create these stories before we know this person, or this other person should be really interesting. Let's go there and meet this person. So we just create all these stories, and people react to these stories. If you look like you're afraid, people will protect themselves. If you're open and open-hearted, people will feel it and will feel like hugging you. We have this power. So the world is not only in us. It's either in my imagination or on these stages that I built, these imaginary stages where I live with other people. So if, like in a Greek tragedy, people know how to react to my Greek tragedy stage. So we have situations of danger, of affection, and so on and so forth. So we know how to play these roles. So what kind of stage are we creating? It's not just about my personal change. I've been working in deconstructing these narratives. So I may, of course, start a new narrative. If you go out of your country, out of your home, out of your family, if you go to a different country, you will soon go to a different stage. You create a new narrative. You become another you. You change the tone of your voice, the way you walk, the food that you eat. So I really like this idea of us having this potential of, rather than fixing ourselves, repairing ourselves, because we're not broken people. We are always acting depending on the stage we are on the narratives we believe in. Now, if we change the narrative, this can be extremely powerful. And I love the narrative of playing. When we play, people at all ages, we know how to collaborate naturally and to appreciate other people. We're naturally very curious about different skin colors, different hair styles, hair types. So we're really excited about these new possibilities. And we may remember the moments when we played or invited other people to play with us, or when other people played us to invited us to play with them, and that was irresistible. In other words, we will be a better version of ourselves by doing this, by being playful beings. That child that we left behind so many years ago, we still have this child within us, crazy, excited for playing with a piece of wood, a tree, a river, a mountain. I really love this idea that maybe building the world of our dreams or expressing our dreams may be fun, may be fast, that we don't need to spend money, and it may have amazing results. Fast, free, fun, and fantastic. Thank you.
Fun and fantastic. Adorei.
I
Obrigada.
love this. I love this. Fast, free, fun, and fantastic. Eric?
Wow. Cantar y hablar, pero
So many things to develop and talk. We're not going to do it right now, but that's the conversation that follows from here forward. So there, I take from this, I listen many invitations in everything that was shared. One is the invitation to discomfort, to you know, put yourself in discomfort. I loved this idea of, it's not by chance that we have not visited an indigenous community or a neighborhood in the margins, or gotten close to people from different sexual orientation or ethnicity. We need to go and meet them. The only way is, that's the only way to break that prejudice, is to do it. That's not going to be solved. This is not something that's going to be solved intellectually. So that's one part. And another part is, I loved this last idea. Sometimes I forget to play. A lot of times I forget to play. And this fact that celebrating diversity, it's a party. It's a party. This immense pot, yes. So these are several of the invitations that are here, that are the basis for a dream that is really sustainable and fair and just and plenty. Uh, or else it cannot happen. Or else it will be more of the same. So I don't know, Regina, help me regarding time, if we have some extra time to listen to anybody who wants to speak, any of the participants who want to say something, or somebody wants to ask something through the chat. Yes, we have time, and I think we can invite the travelers to jump in.
So we're inviting the participants to play. So we should listen to our guests, travelers, participants who want to play with us. So please feel free. Just raise your hand and we'll open the floor, or turn on your mics for you. We want to listen to you.
Tem a tradução, né?
Well, we have translation.
Autumn Ford.
So, Ottenford, you'd like to speak? He's always with us. Can anyone open the mic, turn on the mic for him? Otten?
Hi. Hi. I so love all of this. My heart is there. I'm living in the States and my heart is with all of us. Here's what I wanted to say is this, that it feels like one of the cornerstones of life, of living and creating our dream, is awareness. Part of that's awareness about what's going on. And we're talking about a lot of those aspects today. But I'm thinking about awareness, going from kind of tunnel vision, kind of being fixed at how we look at life and experience it. And what are the ways in which we open our tunnel vision so that we're more able to actually see more and more of life within ourselves and around, personally and collectively. So I'd like us to maybe look at, maybe even talk a little bit about that. What's the value of that? And what are some of the things that we can do? Practices, personal spiritual practices that we then get to share and actually live in our day-to-day living. Thank you.
Thank you, Otan. Thank you.
Thank you, Otan.
Convidar também o... perdão, Edgar. Quero te...
Sorry, Edgar, you want to say something?
Em português.
I'll speak in Portuguese. The Guarani, Brazilian indigenous peoples, the Guaranis, they say that human beings, or their culture is that they say that human beings are like a recorder, like a flute or a recorder. They have sound places like vowel sounds in some parts of their body, and they show exactly where these places are the 7 chakras. So each chakra has a sound in this indigenous culture. So every human being is like a recorder. And when all these, or the only moment, the only situation, all these sounds play together and there's a chord and they tune in together, this is when your soul is present, when you're fully present. And the only moment when this happens is when you have pleasure in life. Pleasure, joy is so interesting. So these places, and I love this. For me, this is wonderful. So when is this possible? When we're celebrating together, when in connection, when we have lots of souls, or when you're somewhere and an animal, a wild animal, goes there and lies on you, when a swan sees you and put their head on your hand because they chose to. This is a joy that you feel when you're a child together with these animals. Your soul is there. So it's really simple. It's not something you need to conquer over time. It's just about letting it happen. The good news is that we already are Buddha in his last enlightenment. He's at 5th or 7th, I can't remember, but anyway, in the last, close to the last of his enlightenments, he said, oh, I'm happy that every human being has a Buddha nature or Buddhic nature. He didn't need to teach it. He was happy that all beings had a Buddha nature. It's not something that you need to put inside. It's already there. You just need to reveal it. You have to surrender to it. We inner be. We shout. When we're young children, you know, when children, they're almost sleeping, but they don't want to sleep. They want to go to bed. They're just excited and they never fall asleep. We're like them. We are gods that are silenced. So to what situations should I surrender to this moment of joy? Maybe with a child, when you are floating in water, maybe. So this is what springs to mind. And of course, play lets us melt all these things, and nothing else makes sense in the world of seriousness. Once people ask me, I was in an anthroposophical meeting in California, and I said, what's your purpose in life? To unlock the human spirit through the fields of play. It's much nicer in English. I just used English. I don't know how to translate this into Portuguese. So to unlock the human spirit through the fields of play. This is where I don't need to teach anyone. I just invite everyone and they know what to do. And I've done this with 50 people, with 300 people, with 1,500 people, and with 21,000 people. All I needed to do is say, come, come, come on stage, and people knew exactly what to do, and they presented the best versions of themselves, because we're damaging ourselves. In our garden, we are damaging it, we're harming it. But when you understand this is just a transitional phase and that we can easily access this portal, and everyone has already crossed this portal several times or many times, thinking this is just a moment of bliss. Don't leave, stay there. We're really close to it. And I think that this is what we need. It's like with the Italian movie, Life is Beautiful. Let's create new invites. Well, your invite for us to play. We'll just lay our weapons down. We're unarmed. Now, Gary Viller, I don't know how to pronounce your name or where you're from, Gary. Can anyone turn on Gary's mic, please?
Hola, hola, hola amigos, ¿se escucha bien? ¿Sí? Pues bueno, estoy contento, feliz de estar con ustedes, realmente complacido.
I'm happy to be here with you and really admire what Pachamama Alliance does. I'm really happy with what you're doing here and with what's been spoken of today, and to see you, to have contact with people of so many different parts of the planet. It really fills my heart, and I want to contribute with something regarding what has been talked about today. And I think something very important to talk about, thinking about what the world that we want to create and the world that is starting to seem possible. There is a part that is uncomfortable, and is that what Eric mentioned at the beginning, and I think it's really important, and all of you have mentioned, is the fact of realizing that historically there have been collectives of people that have been somehow oppressed, and in the same way there have been collectives that have been the oppressors, the perpetrators. And I think that this discomfort, it's important to talk about it, and to look at it in the face, in order to make this transformation of the culture, so we are able to move forward in a consistent and coherent way and create the world we want to create. So I certainly realize that it's, first of all, it's important to identify these collectives who have been the oppressed and the oppressors, and then identify the how has this oppression been generated. So there we can start to look at ourselves and see, okay, how we might, what privileges do we have, and in which ways we are contributing to preserve conditions that are still oppressive. So first, to realize, I realize how, with certain specific actions, by doing or not doing something, I am contributing for the oppression to continue. And once we are aware of this, then we can stop doing what we are doing to preserve oppression and start to do what promotes more equality. Uh, and I ask this because the mention of who does this depend on was touched very intelligently in this conversation. And I think it's both. The oppressed has to stop doing what they have been doing, and they must become aware of what they are doing first. But the oppressed also. And now, to finish with my conversation, when I am aware of how I damage the other, when I become aware, then the forgiveness can have place, and then I ask for forgiveness, and then the oppressed can forgive me. And this happens individually, with between two people, but then it also happens collectively between societies and cultures. And it's very important that we'll look at it in order to be able to heal these cultural wounds and move forward towards what we want to build. And that's what I wanted to say, and I want to send you a big hug to each one of you from Peru.
Thank you, Gary. Moving on now to turn it over to Howard Friend. Please.
First, I want to say a shout out to my son, Eric. I'm so proud of him and I love him, and it's wonderful to see all of you loving him. I'm rereading a book by Stephen Levine. You may not know that name. He was a friend of Baba Ram Dass, which just gives my age away. But he has meditations through the book. And he says, imagine stretching out your arms to express the embrace of your forgiveness. And notice who stands outside of your embrace. Are you willing to stretch your embrace to include them? And sometimes we have mixed feelings about that. I'd like to connect that to what Edgar said about story. The people I'm most upset with, angry at, in disagreement with, have a story. And their behavior that I may not like, wish they'd speak differently, wish they had different opinions. If we knew their story, we might understand. But that's true, I think, for all of us. I am who I am, I think what I think, I say what I say, I have my opinions, but it's part of my biography. And sometimes we need healing of our biographies and extend healing and forgiveness for those with their troubled biographies. So thank you to both bringing up forgiveness and story as important themes. And thank you for a chance to say hello to Eric.
Thank you, Howard. Obrigada.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, everyone who participate and help and contribute with our reflections, with our discussions. Everyone who feels like contributing, who feels like sharing, not only the production, management, and creation teams, but everyone who's here. All that we hear feeds us. And the result of these meetings is that we can be, that we can build together, that we can co-create this beautiful world we fully, strongly believe in. And it's already out there. Having you here every week, this shows me that we are already building this world. In each of our worlds, we're now 72 people in this room. And there are countless connections that these 72 people can have in this world. Connections of respect, connections of acceptance, connections of sharing, connections of forgiveness, connections of play, without weapons, without defenses, without attacking anyone, just interbeing and respecting each other. So we invite you to that you keep being with us. We have 2 more weeks of connection, and then we will start another very beautiful phase in interbeing, and this is what we call mini series. And then we'll have 2 3-hour weekly meetings with more time to listen to inspiring people, to learn from people who've been building this beautiful dream, and to learn how to make these dreams come true, to realize them in practice. Last week I said that Dreaming is about this state of glory, of imagining, feeling your body light and having butterflies in your stomach. Some of that's almost unreachable, but it is very reachable. And this will be discussed in our mini series. We have those that will weave dreams, dream weavers, that will really learn how to make all these dreams come true. So our dreams for 2030, for 2050, when maybe all of us, those that strongly believe that the world will be fairer, more sustainable. So for us to keep doing this, after with the mini series, we will be building this group of support and doing things together. We need your help. So if we, at some point on our screen, you will find a QR code. So if you point your cell phone to the QR code, you will be able to register and contribute how much is possible. So we now have this screen with a QR code. You can also see our website there. On our website, you will get all the information that you need, in-depth information. If you have any questions, please write to our email, encanto@interserjourney.org. I'd also like to invite Jorge to speak to us now, which is always very inspirational.
Muchas gracias, Regina.
Thanks a lot, Regina.
A todos nuestros ponentes del día de hoy. Ha sido un día.
All our speakers today have created
lleno de posibilidades.
An awesome experience, full of possibilities.
Mi cabeza está
and my head is
vueltas por todos los mundos que se abren.
Turning around, is flying with imagining, understanding all the different worlds that we can create.
Es increíble cómo
and it's incredible how
este proyecto puede tocar
this project is able to touch so many people.
Y tantos
and
lugares, tantos espacios.
So many, it's able to reach so many places, so many spaces.
Es fundamental que
it's essential that we continue dreaming.
Y que le abramos el corazón
and that we open
a todos los
our hearts to
que están gestándose
all of the dreams.
Y yo creo que el Interser
and I believe that Interbeing Journey
abrir la mente
is that possibility to open the minds
con todas las posibilidades
with all the possibilities of service
en todos los lugares,
in all the places, in all the people,
abriendo todos los corazones.
Opening all the hearts.
Para mí es importante hoy contarles.
For me, it's important to tell you today
abrimos ya las inscripciones en
that we already opened
Estamos listos
the possibility of signing in to the next part of the journey. To be with us
y dos primeras semanas de
in the last week of October and first weeks of November.
De generar sueños acompañados. No
so that you register to this program to find possibilities to creating dreams together.
Y les tengo una maravillosa noticia.
And I have a wonderful news for you.
En primicia.
And you're going to be the first ones
incluso para algunos miembros del equipo que se van a enterar hoy.
Listen to it, and even some people of the team are going to listen to this news for the first time. This is like a premiere, like a debut.
Este año la presencia de Lynn Twist.
This year we're going to have Lynn Twist.
Nos va a acompañar en la.
She's going to be with us in
con toda la mirada desde
in the program.
Co-creadora de la Alianza Pachamama y y del
with
Instituto
all her
va a estar con nosotros
experience as
desafiando
co-founder of Pachamama Alliance
muchas cosas,
and the Soul of Money
y
Institute.
dándonos
She's
la
going to be
oportunidad de fortalecer ese
teaching and challenging many things. And will
Nos va a acompañar
be an
también
awesome person.
Bob Dunham
We'll also have Bob Dunham
de la Escuela de Liderazgo Generativo.
of Generational Leadership.
Entrevisté el día
I interviewed him.
y está muy, muy, muy emocionado.
I interviewed him and he was very, very excited
Como él decía
about being with us.
en la conversación, los
As
sueños
he said
son de cuidado.
in the conversation, dreaming has to do with
Y cuidar,
taking care of on what you take care about or of, and taking
cuidar
care,
tiene
caring for
amar
involves loving,
haciendo. Entonces,
involves loving
espero nos
and
podamos
doing,
conectar
loving through doing, or doing through loving. So
con él porque nos va a
I
acompañar
really hope to
a
see you
fortalecernos para sacar adelante
in
sueños.
the program, the 3-week program, because
Y
he's going to help us
también
bring our dreams forward. And
Charles Eisenstein,
we're also going to have Charles Eisenstein,
una persona que a mí me ha entregado
a person that has
en términos de crecimiento,
given me so many things
desde tantas
in
aristas.
terms of growth from so many different angles.
Ha escrito varios libros
He
que
has written several
en el
books
mejor sentido de la palabra son polémicos, van al
that
punto y nos
that
muestran
are really
un mundo de posibilidades, como todo lo que tiene que ver
critical about
con
what we need to
el mundo más bonito que nos
understand. They are polemical
saben posible.
and they are really they really show us how like the key aspects
Tanta ilusión de podernos mostrar
that
tanto.
we need to be aware of in order to create the better world that our hearts know it's possible.
Entonces, con esto, lo que les
So
digo
with
es,
this,
por
what
favor,
I say is
ingresen a nuestra página.
please go to our website.
Hoy estamos estrenando nuevo website.
Today we are launching a new website.
Ya entrar a www.interser.journey.
So please go to www.interserjourney.org, as you can see there.
Todo lo que queremos entregarle a todos ustedes.
So you can see everything that we want to deliver to you, everything that we want to offer to you. Not only in the 2 following
sus aportes que nos puedan ayudar
free sessions, but in the 3 weeks
para poder seguir
of the program. And we are also open to receiving your support
con muchos soñadores,
and the inputs that you want to give us, so we are able to
para que todos nosotros podamos seguir
open a space to each and every dreamer who wants to participate, and that we can all be benefited by the gifts that all these wonderful people are bringing to us. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Prestándonos su atención. Muchas
Thanks
gracias.
for your attention and for your hearts and for being here. Thank you.
A ti, Regina, por el regalo.
Thanks to you, Regina, for the gift that you bring also. Thank you. Okay, we hear that you are very inspired and your words are a gift for each and every one of us. But you had a little problem with your microphone. So your sound was kind of, it was not so good, but I hope that all of you captured the message of Jorge about the mini-series that will begin in the last week of October and will also last during the 2 first weeks of November. And in this mini-series, we'll have more time to listen to very inspiring people, confirmed, Lynn Twist, Bob Dunham, Charles Eisenstein, who inspire us and sustain us and are working with us in this project since the last year. And there you can see them. And Jorge also talked to us about the importance of strengthening this network with not only with great inspirers such as them, but also with many of the coaches that belong to our core team, and that who are moving forward this engine, making this engine work day to day, day after day, is to be able to have a consistent platform that is able to hold and bring about our dreams for the world. So this mini series is going to be a space also such as this one, twice a week, last week of October to first weeks of November, in which we're going to be able to go deeper, delve deeper into all these topics that we have been touching here of reconnect and heal and realize dreams for the world. And over here in the screen, you can see our faces, the faces of the team, the creators and producers and creators of this space and uh, managers of this space. So we invite you to visit our website and delve deeper into the information about the mini series, and also please to um, uh, register to the mini series that is going to be a paid space with a paid registration that will enable us to put all these many tools together in service for you and for the world and for your dreams. And so we're also able to sustain the tapestry that helps us be here and that sustains us here. So Jorge, can you share the QR code, please?
Espacio a alguien que sabe que no puede aportar.
If you want to offer the space to somebody, you know, that can donate some money, if you can do it, or if you know about somebody who can donate and help us to continue supporting this tapestry of the interbeing and how we can continue together walking this journey of interbeing and of realizing our dreams for the world. So I really appreciate your presence and appreciate everything we heard today. And I come out more touched, more connected, with much more knowledge in order to intervene. To close in a special way, the same way as we opened, I invite Marco to play some more of his beautiful music and of his beautiful culture, Marco Tafoya. I think you can give us this beautiful gift of your music to close. And I invite you to stand up and dance together, whoever wants to do it. And next week, we're going to have another connection experience next Thursday, same channel, same time. I invite you to look at your emails with our invitation and visit our website, and we will continue interbeing and continue connected. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Marco, are you with us? Yeah, and thank you, Marco. Thanks for the opportunity, and I would like to say goodbye with a song that is called Woman, and it talks about our cosmovision. It's a way of explaining our cosmovision between the earth and the sky, the masculine and the feminine, the different but the necessary for the world to exist.
¿Dónde irá mi calma? A donde mis pensamientos voy a trenzar en tu aliento los recuerdos y los versos para contener el viento que me provocan tus besos. Ay mujer, hasta pierdo la cordura porque soy mal artesano cuando intento tu figura. Ay mujer, si me aprendo en ti soy río, si me pierdo de tu abrigo, mi canción muere de frío. de ti nace el agua clara, de mí nace el sol rotundo, de los dos la vida en aras. Ay, mujer, soy armonía, si mi paso es solitario, pero es mejor el día con tu brazo solidario. Ay, mujer, hasta pierdo la cordura, porque soy mal artesano cuando intento tu figura. Ay, mujer, si me aprendo en ti soy río, si me pierdo de tu abrigo, mi canción muere de frío. Ay, mujer, hasta pierdo la cordura, porque soy mal artesano cuando intento tu figura. Ay, mujer, si me aprendo en ti soy río, si me pierdo de tu abrigo, mi canción muere de frío.
Gracias, Marco. Gracias a todos. Obrigada a todos. Nos
Gracias.
vemos na semana que vem.
Muchas gracias.
Tchau, gracias.
Gracias, un abrazo.
Gracias a todos. Gracias. Chao, chao.
Tchau, gracias. Nos vemos jueves. Nos vemos na quinta-feira que vem. Boa semana.
Gracias, adiós.
Gracias, María.
Chao.
Obrigada, Ângela.
Bueno, nos vemos el próximo jueves. Y esto se acaba en 5, 4, 3, 2. Adiós.
Tchau.